So we're reflecting this morning on songs and music for the journey. And I wanted to bring you to the place that maybe you've already had once or twice this summer. You've had this trip planned for ages, or maybe just minutes. Maybe it just sprung upon you. And so I wonder, what do you need for a trip? What do you need on your journey? What's a road trip require? This is for you, anyone. What do you need? Snacks. Yes, that's on my list. Thank you. Anything else? Companionship is good. Oh, Timmy's. Yeah, we need a coffee. What does David need for a trip? Directions. Yes, that's a good point. Anything else? A fishing rod. I know what kind of trip you're going on. That's not my kind of trip, but I like that for you. So there's lots of things you might need. Oh, James has one too. Music. See, thank you. That's part of today's service. Very important. You got the clue. So of course we need fuel for the journey. For the people, in our house we call that road snacks. We need road snacks right from the minute the car starts, right? As soon as you're on the road, you need that. And you probably need fuel. And like David said, you might need a sense of direction, and that might be a nice sturdy map that you keep in your car for the last 15 years with markings on it. It might be the map in your mind, or it might be the GPS system you swore you'd never use, but it turns out sometimes when there's construction or a detour, it can be kind of helpful. So I don't know about you, but the essential part for me of a road trip, even if I didn't pack it properly, at some point I've got to figure out how the journey can have a soundtrack. And I know in the movies, it's always the perfect song at the most opportune time. Even if we turned away for a minute, we would know what was coming. A moment of nostalgia, a sense of impending doom, the exhilaration of wide open spaces. Each song gives us a clue of what's happening and what's coming next. And I know our journeys don't usually work like that. And for many of us, if the road is smooth or if it's going is getting tough, there is always at least one song for that situation. So in my era, music has traveled with me. First, I remember a small set of dusty 8-tracks. Recognition, yes. I remember seeing some dusty 8-tracks in my dad's old pickup truck on the farm. I believe the list was comprised of old country, Elvis, and a special person called Engelbert Humperdinck. You can't remember that. You can't forget that name. And from the 8-tracks came a time of cassette tapes, collections by decade that kids would receive at our house. If we had an illness or a broken bone, someone would go to a department store and pick up from the bin one of those little tapes of a collection of oldies. And so our favorites from recovering from anything included the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, to pass the time at home, and then they would become part of the station wagon collection for our country drives. And of course, we can all think about a time when music wasn't quite so portable. We had to travel to find it. Finding a real dance hall with a live band was the ultimate to get together, and those soul-filling sounds of a church organ or a choir were also sought after in our church services. And then when records became available, collecting a few favorites was such a treat, giving your favorite album a spin, and if you were lucky, a record player that would play a whole stack in a row, providing hours of music before we'd ever dreamed of having a digital playlist that we could just shuffle at our fingertips. And of course, somewhere between the live dance bands and the modern playlist, the personalized, customized mixtape. I think that used to be the perfect ingredient for a road trip. Even though there became a way to burn a CD in a similar way, there was something just perfect about a tape. You could write on it, you could customize it, and you'd have to put a lot of personal investment into it, right? You'd have to sit at the tape player to catch the song on the radio, or use a double cassette system to copy your perfectly curated list. It was such a gift when you handed it over to a friend or maybe a crush. Now, admittedly, the mixtapes around our house are gone, but there is something that happens when the songs that I remember from those tapes, when they come up at the perfect time. The perfect song that speaks to our faith, makes us brave, reminds us that we aren't ever alone. For example, this week I was tackling a wicked problem. In my other role, I work in farm politics, and we had to solve an issue that was frustrating and confusing and new, and it involved change. And we don't like change, do we? We don't. And I thought, what's going to make us happy and joyful and get through this, and how can I write what I have to write without something in the background. And I thought, we'd had some pool time this week, and I was thinking a lot about the Beach Boys. And so my playlist for my writing and my meetings to tackle this wicked problem was the Beach Boys. I've tried being angry and sad and confused when they're playing, and it doesn't work. Because they're fun, they're lighthearted, they bring a spirit and that harmony. There's something playful about that, and I think we do need joy sometimes to face the journey. So I suppose you've heard the words that James was reading for us this morning about Joshua, and he was being faced with a very important journey and decision and some leadership. Joshua was hearing and sensing God's presence. He has to find a way forward after his leader, Moses, has died. This is no small feat. It's an Old Testament feat. They were all big events that were happening. So he's stalling, and he's scared, and he's not sure. And God's presence calls to him, saying, I've laid out guidelines for you. Follow my guidelines, and you can be reassured. God reassures Joshua he can handle what's coming, but he needs to be brave. It's a major undertaking to rise to the challenge of leading a nation and inheriting a whole land. But Joshua again feels the reminding words. Use my words, remember them, repeat them. God says several ways. Be brave and do not fear. You are not alone. I will be with you. All of these reminders bring to mind the way that we too can find ways to follow the values and words of our faith, to bring ourselves from fear into bravery, to find courage when we're not certain. And maybe it's no surprise then that the simple ideas from our faith and our convictions have been turned into beautiful art. Art can help us do that. The poetry and the artistry of our music can help shore us up in so many ways. And of course, Joshua came to us well before the time of Jesus. He had to find ways to follow his calling to be a leader, not just with words, but with actions. How did he do it? Maybe he read and reread and chanted, relied on his mantras of his faith. But no doubt he had some music to guide and remind and to strengthen. Maybe he had a playlist for his journey. And what about us? How do we use music in our own playlist or collection to see us through? In today's culture, you'll see walk-up music. You'll see it when athletes are coming onto the field for an important game, or newly wedded couples pick out a song to remind them and those assembled of their personality, their values, what helps to shore them up on their journey. So when we think about the messages that serve us, they bring together actions and words that are meant to reach all kinds of people. So many times we want to motivate or convince or reassure our human family. We need music. And of course we know there's a style for everyone, for contemplation, for ritual, to be formal, or to have fun. And it's okay if what's for you isn't for someone else. Just like our faith stories, they're all different, and some variety will inevitably happen, and that's okay. Music, I find, helps us get out of our own heads, get out of our own worries, and remember that there is a force guiding us, a story that's bigger than us, somewhere out there, to keep finding the good, to keep being the good, challenging what is unfair and making the change, in essence, supporting us along our journey. I was reminded in a really humbling way about this with a scene about the song in the garden recently. I was able to be leading a small worship service at Horizon Place, and I was with the residents there who'd gathered in their common room to spend some time together talking about our faith. So we had a short service, and I picked some songs that I knew would be comfortable, and I played so we could sing together. This Little Light of Mine, Jesus Loves Me. I didn't do the clapping one, though. And Blessed Assurance. I was able to play, and they sang along, and I could sense they were enjoying that part, and they were comfortable with that aspect of singing together. And because there's different energy and memories and abilities in the space, it seemed time that the spoken word be done. And so I could tell we needed more, and I asked, would you like to sing some more hymns together? And it was a definite yes. So one of the team members went to this little nook and found a whole bunch of large print books, and we started matching up their songs to my hymn book so we could keep singing and playing for a bit longer. And the most touching by far was witnessing them singing together in the garden. They didn't need their books. They were transported through time to church services from decades ago, maybe funeral services of ones they've loved. These faithful few sang, even those who struggle now with memory, with sight, with hearing, that tune and that reassurance of Mary Magdalene being visited and comforted by Jesus after his resurrection. It was all there. And if you've been here a while, you'll know that I have kind of a wide range of music that I love and listen to. And so we can't talk about music for road trips without talking about musicals. And some people in my family will absolutely disagree because they do not want to hear any musicals when we're on a road trip. But on my trip, I will have some musical theater. And one of those would be Jesus Christ Superstar. Is anyone familiar with some of the songs in that one? Oh, yes. Okay, that's good. So I'm not just talking to myself then. So you've heard about Andrew Lloyd Webber's epic Jesus Christ Superstar rock opera musical theater. It tells the story of Jesus in the final days leading to his crucifixion. So it's based on the Gospels, but it really hones in on the conflicts between Jesus, his disciples, the people of Israel, and the leadership of Rome, and that fractured relationship between Judas Iscariot and Jesus, and how there was this special relationship with Mary Magdalene, a devoted follower. Musical theater, to me, is a creative and energetic way to share a message and remember a story. It engages our senses and learning styles, and those songs find their way into your heart, especially if you've ever been part of performing or singing those songs together. It keeps different parts of our brain busy and make those awesome connections that memory loss cannot break. And songs like Jesus Christ Superstar help us remember our faith story can be in a different format, bringing a different style to our collection. And now we'll take a different turn out of musical theater into reggae. Why not? I think there's a picture next about, yes, Bob Marley, perfect. Why not reggae? It's not the most likely selection for some of our usual weeks or our services, but I do hear threads of the Jesus story in Bob Marley's music about overcoming and pushing back against war and greed and making better lives in all styles of music. So one that comes to mind is the way he speaks when he sings One Love. The message on the surface is about simple love, peace, harmony, unity. It's similar in a way to the John Lennon Imagine song, but a very different style, which reached different people, which is important. So beyond the catchy chorus, that's easy enough to attach to. The first verse asks, "Is there a place for the hopeless sinner who has hurt all mankind just to save his own?" Bob might be calling for peace, but he's also trying to suggest that everyone, no matter how broken or unsteady they've been in their lives, they're all worthy of forgiveness and redemption. He might even be talking about himself in that time. And that's where the great music comes from, is when people get really honest about where the hurts are. But I love how he describes the perspective of the oppressed and greed and selfishness of the root, being the root of our world's issues. His message was trying to transcend race and religion, nationality, borders, cultures, and generations. In essence, coming together for the common cause of humanity. And I know we all have different ideas about what is reverent, or what is holy, or what is proper, or what's acceptable to tackle matters of faith. But some songs kind of grab the masses regardless of any boundary, and they just don't let us go, which in a way is actually an unexpected kind of ministry that breaks the walls of traditional churches and structures down and helps us think about matters of life and death with images we can relate to make our faith more clear. If it keeps some of us looking up or on the path and adding to our journey or our road trip of life, I think those songs are worth a second look. And this one's always grabbed me too. I feel like if we did this, we could do this all summer probably, right? Just more and more songs. Anyway, Spirit in the Sky is one that really speaks to me. Norman Greenbaum was the one who wrote this one. And he was told by the Rolling Stone record company it would never break the top 20. And I feel like if a 40-something person can still remember all the words in 2026, I think it broke the top 20 pretty clearly. In 1970, it peaked at number 3 in the Billboard's Top 100, so he certainly had something. It ended up in movies of Wayne's World 2, Apollo 13, Remember the Titans, and it's cross-generational lines. When we hear it now, we still hear people singing along. And a cool little tidbit about this one is Norman is actually of Jewish descent, so he was a very unlikely candidate for a song with Christian themes about eternal life. He had seen a greeting card that featured Native Americans around a fire in a spiritual moment, and the caption read, "Spirit in the Sky." And he was grabbed by that, and he combined it with ideas from other stories about cowboy movies, how people find their way to church on the day to only find out that the pastor is on vacation. It's an anthem for those who see the end of their life as a type of celebration, and maybe especially for those who've been a bit on the edgy or unconventional side. It's even been heard as an ad for funeral homes, and it's been featured in people's wills as their wish for a final send-off. So my challenge to you this morning is to keep thinking and talking to each other in our time after the service. Tell me your favorites. Tell each other your favorites. What are the songs of your journey? And they're all pieces of our roadmap, of our lives and our faith story, because they remind us of the words and the values and the faith that brings us courage and bravery on this trip we call life. So how about our Bible stories, like Joshua, our reluctant leader, or Jesus' own followers? They could see Jesus would not be able to tackle the challenge of all of this teaching and preaching and healing by himself. The followers had a sense he had a limited time to spread his message, and they were being called to serve in ways they couldn't yet understand. But how can an everyday person spread this message that Jesus had? They weren't like him. We're not like him. No one could copy his style. It wouldn't be right. It would fall flat, and they would feel like fakes. So followers had to reflect and discern what their own gifts were. Some maybe had playfulness, some had wit, some had knowledge, some had a story, some had example. They all had a part to play, but they all had to do it their way. And isn't that a lot like our musicians? There are so many ways to tell the same story. We have repeat after me songs to teach our youngest ones beloved tunes for camp and circle time. We have silly satire music to poke holes and make a point without quite getting into trouble. We have deep wisdom and references to scripture or examples that make a story come to life. And some people with the way they not only lead with their music, but use their platform to lead with their life. Music can be our inspiration, and there are so many ways that our beloved songs and musicians can bring us back in time and time again to our own faith story, to create a beautiful, curated playlist and become intertwined along the map of life, giving us meaningful music for the journey. May it be so.